Alright, let's talk about California. Places you might not think are affordable, but hear me out. No, I haven't suddenly started a fantasy podcast. These spots are actually out there. California is, as we all know, one of the priciest states in the whole US. There are only a few cities that you could even call somewhat affordable, and that aren't completely swamped with homelessness and crime. I mean, every city deals with those two things, but some are just totally overwhelmed. Today, though, we're checking out 5 cities in California that are easier on your wallet. They're definitely not perfect, not by a long shot. Imagine, if cities were truly considered nice, they'd naturally cost more. That's just how things work. Take Mississippi, for instance. People usually only buy property there when they've run out of other options and are short on money. So, we're going to check out affordable California. Got it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 5, Fontana, California. Number 5, Fontana, California, the affordable speedway to the good life. So, you want to move to California but don't want to sell your government? Fontana has some real secrets when it comes to being an affordable, smart choice. Everyone else thinks you need a billionaire's salary just to afford a place. But Fontana just sits there, happily affordable for California. It gives you a piece of the Golden State without sending you to financial ruin. The city used to be called Rosina from 1898 to 1919. Then, Azriel Blanchard Miller founded the city in 1919 and named it Fontana, which means fountain or water source in Italian. Way back when, Fontana was all farming, especially citrus orchards. Back when it was called US Route 66, this area was all about vineyards and chicken ranches. But then World War II came along, and everything changed big time. Henry J. Kaiser put up this huge steel factory right outside what's now Foothill Boulevard. This was a pretty big deal because there were only 2 steel mills west of the Mississippi at that point, and this was one of them. Kaiser really cared about his employees, so he even started a medical facility here in Fontana. That little healthcare idea, it actually grew into Kaiser Permanente, which is still the biggest managed care organization around. Fontana, in the US, isn't too shabby for a place that began with just orchards and chickens, right? Let's check out the numbers that make a difference. Fontana has about 205,000 residents, which is a good amount. It's big enough to have a Costco, but not so large that getting your morning coffee becomes a race. The typical home here is valued at a bit under $600,000. That's surprisingly fair when you think about California's overall average of $773,000. If buying a home feels like too much of a commitment, you might not be ready to take the leap just yet. Fontana's average rent is only 34% higher than the national average. That's actually not too shabby when you consider that California as a whole is 76% above the national average. Sure, if you compare it to a place like Mississippi or Oklahoma, these prices would seem wild, but we're talking about California here. As for crime, Fontana is safer than 63% of US cities. You can probably walk your dog at night without worrying too much or grabbing your pepper spray like it's your only hope. The contrast is clear when you look at how things stack up. The unemployment rate here is around 6. A 7% chance isn't awesome, for sure. But if you're looking for job security, maybe don't list aspiring influencer on your resume. And since everyone moving to California asks about the beach, here's the deal. Newport Beach is about 55 miles away. On a good day, that's an hour's drive. If you're a real Californian, you know that means 2 hours in traffic. So you'll need a podcast lineup long enough for a Netflix binge. Fontana seriously has a need for speed. Back in the 1950s, drag racing was a huge deal in our city. People loved it. Even though most of those illegal street races are just in movies now, that racing feeling is still around. Today, Fontana has the Auto Club Speedway. It's where NASCAR and IndyCar fans go when they need that rush. I've gone to a few NASCAR races there. It's a massive track. But seriously, getting out of that parking lot? Oh my god, it was absolutely wild. I've never experienced anything like it. We were just stuck, not moving an inch. You might be in line for about 15 minutes trying to leave. The cool thing is, Metrolink adds a stop right by the Speedway complex. It's not usually there, but they open it up for events. I'd definitely recommend taking that if you can. whether you're heading all the way home or just to a parking lot a bit further off. Just a heads up, there's construction going on right now, so it probably won't be open again until 2026. But don't worry, Fontana offers more than just car races for those who love speed. It's a place with plenty of other attractions. If you're looking for a spot about 50 miles from Los Angeles, Fontana hits that sweet spot of not breaking the bank while still being easy to get to. It's great if you want those big city advantages without the huge cost. Now, finding a job right in Fontana might be a bit of a challenge unless you've got some specific skills. Some of the bigger employers there are places like the California Steel Industry, the Fontana Unified School District, and Burt. Honestly, if you're thinking of moving to Fontana, my best advice would be to have a good remote job lined up. It really seems like the ideal place to live if you can make that work. For folks working those downtown LA gigs who only need to show up a couple times a month, Fontana is a pretty good option. So, you're probably wondering what there is to do in Fontana apart from the raceway. It might not be as glamorous as some other California spots, and it certainly doesn't have the techie feel of Silicon Valley. But believe me, there's quite a bit to keep you busy. There's Fontana Park, for starters. Every city needs a park, right? And Fontana's park really comes through. It's got an indoor gym, a 14-lane competition pool, plus a skate and BMX park. You also have the Sierra Lakes Golf Club. I actually reached out to a friend who lives there. My friend who grew up in Fontana swears by Red Hill Coffee House. He says if you're looking for something to eat, their chocolate chip pancakes are amazing, and so is the Red Hill omelet. He also raves about their breakfast burritos. Everything there is, just good. So, for the final verdict, if you're thinking about moving to Fontana, and you want a California city that won't totally break the bank, with a nice blend of history, good food, and fun things to do, it might be exactly what you need. I really have to stress, though it's still expensive compared to other places. For cities in the middle of the country, it's pretty normal, but out on the West Coast, it's honestly not too bad. Just don't plan on seeing the ocean from your backyard. A typical home in Fontana goes for about $591,000, and rent is only 34% higher than the national average. Like I mentioned, the average in California is 76% above that. Number 4. Sacramento. California number 4 is Sacramento, the California dream you can actually afford. California, oh California, known for sun, surf, and really high living expenses. But what if I told you there's a place in the Golden State where you won't need to sell an organ to live? Can you afford rent here? Welcome to Sacramento, one of California's largest cities that folks often overlook when thinking about moving. This place has a cool history. The cost of living isn't as crazy high as other spots in California, and its crime rate isn't nearly as bad as some of those other cities. Now, the history of Sacramento and the Sacramento Valley is truly fascinating. I'm going to kick things off in 1808. There was plenty happening before that, but 1808 is really when things got started with the Spanish. Gabriel Moraga stumbled upon the Sacramento Valley and the Sacramento River, giving them their names. Then, around August 1939, John Sutter Sr. showed up right where the American and Sacramento rivers come together. He had a Mexican land grant for 50,000 acres, which was a ton of land back then. By the next year, he and his crew started building Sutter's Fort, a really big adobe fortress with walls about 18 feet high. It's safe to say he meant business. Now, in 1848, James W. Marshall found gold at Sutter's Mill in Coloma, which is about 50 miles northeast of the fort, naturally kicked off a gold rush. Gold just has a weird way of making people go wild. You had hordes of fortune seekers pouring into the area, turning it into a chaotic mess. They always talk about how Sutter's Mill is where they found gold and it was all sunshine and rainbows, but they never tell you the downside. By August, John Sutter Sr.'s son, John Sutter Jr., arrived to try and help his dad get a handle on the increasing debt linked to his land. But the Sutters were really in a tough spot. It was a losing battle, really. Thousands of miners and prospectors just poured onto their land, settling wherever they felt like it, and taking anything that wasn't bolted down. What should have been a huge win for Sutter turned into a complete mess. Then, in 1848, John Sutter Jr. and Samuel Brandon started planning out the city of Sacramento, which was about 2 miles south of his dad's place. His father didn't want this to happen, but he was deep in debt and just couldn't do anything to stop it. The people living in Sacramento chose to adopt when the city got its charter in 1849. It quickly faced another flood the very next year. Not a rush of gold seekers, but a real water flood that just tore through the city. Rushing waters ripped up houses, drowned animals, and pretty much wiped out Sacramento. Funny how one thing leads to another, and this same city ended up becoming the capital of California. So, if we talk numbers, Sacramento now has around 484,000 people living there. A total of 3 million people call the metro area home, and the average house here sells for less than $500,000. If that sounds really cheap, it is. So, you've dealt with Bay Area real estate and renting, which means you've probably seen some crazy prices. What I'm talking about here isn't too bad. It's just 25% more than the national average, which is way less than California's overall 76% above average. Let's be real, Sacramento isn't the safest place ever, but it is safer than 18% of other places in California. That means there are quite a few spots that are worse. The cool thing is, they actually have some really awesome neighborhoods there too. So, a lot of folks from the government, like diplomats and other officials, and a good number of wealthy individuals, live around here. It's California, after all, but it's not right by the beach, which is why it's actually pretty affordable compared to a lot of the major California cities. If you're itching to hit the sand and maybe catch some waves, Ocean Beach is your closest bet, and that's a good 97 miles away. So, if you wake up one morning with a real craving for that salty Pacific breeze, you're going to need to plan for a decent drive. Given that, you might ask, why would anyone choose this spot? So, why Sacramento? Well, for starters, it's called the farm-to-fork capital, which means you get a ton of fresh food straight from the farm. No major processing, it just goes right to the restaurants. And believe it or not, this whole farm-to-fork thing is pretty popular now. The city is literally surrounded by farms, so that means lots of fresh produce and awesome farmers markets all over Sacramento and the surrounding areas. Plus, the city has all sorts of fun events, like the California State Fair and cool food festivals. They've got this Farm to Fork Festival, and if that's not your jam, but you're into basketball, it's where the Sacramento Kings play. You know, in case Sacramento Kings wasn't a big enough clue, I've shared this before, but years ago, I was chatting about Los Angeles, and mentioned how we'd go to the Forum in Inglewood to see the Kings play. Some joker in the comments piped up, "This fool doesn't even know where the Kings play. They play in Sacramento. You really should do your research before making a video." Oh my god. The number of comments after his was insane. Have you ever heard of the NHL? The Los Angeles Kings played at the Inglewood Forum. Back then, they played in Inglewood. Even though now they play downtown LA. The guy literally deleted his account. So, finding great jobs in Sacramento right now is tough. Unless you're selling real estate, working for the government, or at the utilities. If you're retired and you want some peace, it's different. Living in California, this place is a pretty solid option. The weather alone makes it great. And if you're thinking about school, there are some really good colleges around, like Sacramento City College, American River College, and California State University, Sacramento. Most folks just call it Sac State. When it comes to food, the scene here is actually quite good. You've got places like Tower Cafe, famous for its French toast, Denver omelets, and Eggs Tower. And then there's one of my absolute favorite spots, partly because of the name, Vegan Deadly Sins. Seriously, even if you're not vegan, you should really go check it out. If you're looking for California living that's actually affordable, and a city that really gets excited about fresh food, then Sacramento could be your perfect place. It's not Beverly Hills, that's for sure. No ocean views here, but you also won't be spending half your paycheck on rent or avocado toast. Number 3. Chico, California. Chico, California is another West Coast gem you might not know about. I really love Chico. I was just there last year for my niece's big graduation. I graduated about a year and a half ago. Wait, no, it was just last May, so I was there just a few months back. I really love that little town. It's a great place. I was there because my daughter graduated from Chico State, which is right in the heart of downtown Chico. It's an adorable little town, but it's pretty isolated. Sacramento, where you usually have to fly into to get to Chico, is an hour and a half away. It's a nice area, even though it's quite out of the way. It's almost shocking how affordable real estate is here, especially compared to California's crazy prices. That's practically highway robbery everywhere else. Tucked away about 90 miles north of Sacramento, Chico is that sweet spot where small-town vibes meet a lively college atmosphere. There's enough craft beer to keep every student for miles around happy. The town itself has around 100,000 people, and when you count the whole metro area, it's about 200,000. It's got enough going on to be interesting, but it's small enough that you won't ever worry about LA-style traffic jams. Thankfully, trying to get to your favorite brunch spot, Chico, like most Central Valley places, is about 200 miles from the nearest beach. Number 2, Eureka, California. Then there's Eureka, California. Ever heard of it? Probably not. For most people, tucked away in Northern California's foggy embrace, you'll find a city that's both affordable and wonderfully quirky. You've got that right, you don't need to invent the next big thing to live in this city. It truly is accessible. It's wild to think that Humboldt Bay, despite being right there, was missed by European explorers for almost 300 years after 1579 as they sailed along northern California. The tricky geography and bad weather made the bay's narrow entrance super hard to spot. Russians saw it in 1806 and even wrote some notes. But no one could truly pinpoint its exact location until an overland expedition in 1849 finally put it on the map. That discovery pretty much led to Eureka being founded in May. Back in 1850, Eureka was pretty small, just over 20,000 folks living there, and about 50,000 if you counted the immediate surroundings. It's the kind of spot where you could actually get to know people pretty easily. Whether that's a good or bad thing is totally up to you. With homes averaging around $400,000, it means you can actually afford a place with 4 walls and a roof in California. Plus, you can even find rent for under $1,000, which is wild when you think about what some people in San Francisco shell out just for a parking spot. It's not a bad deal. But before you pack your bags and sprint out to the Redwood Coast, let's talk about crime rates. Is Eureka the safest spot in America? Not really. It's actually safer than only about 16% of the US, so it's not the absolute safest. But it's far from the worst. As I've mentioned in other videos, some cities in this country have crime rates that are like 400% above the national average. I even saw one recently that was 900% above the national average in a video, but I forget which one it was. It was a smaller city, you know? Eureka's only about 7.8% above the national average these days. That's really not too bad, but it's not exactly amazing either. Right now, Eureka's unemployment rate is just 5, that's 4%, pretty close to the national average of 4. So, we're talking about 8%, right? If you're not already convinced by the great deals on rent and houses, or maybe the little thrill you get from the occasional crime, let's chat about Eureka itself. It's only about 5 miles from Samoa Beach, which is a pretty good beach. Northern California? Just don't expect to do much sunbathing year-round here. Eureka is known for its cool temperatures, a breezy annual high of 60, and of course, the ever-present ocean fog that this part of California is known for. Think of it as nature's Instagram filter, adding a moody aesthetic to your daily life. One of the best things about Eureka? It's got that small-town charm. Even though it's kind of a city, there are plenty of things to do around there besides Samoa Beach. Take a harbor cruise as well. That's cool for one afternoon, of course. You could always visit Fort Humboldt State Historic Park, Sequoia Park Zoo, which is really nice. And make sure you stop by the Cherry Blossom Bakery. And of course, Amiga's Burrito. So, is Eureka for you? Eureka is one of those places that's perfect if you love a mix of artsy, small-town vibes, affordable housing, and the occasional encounter with the unexpected. The cool temperatures and foggy atmosphere make it a refreshing break from the usual California heat. This town's creative spirit means you'll always find something to do. It really feels like an artsy colony. The good news is that homes in Eureka go for around $48,000 on average, and rent is just 8% more than the rest of the country. Number 1, Bakersfield, California. Before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about moving to any of these cities or anywhere else in the United States, then write in comments. We can connect you with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. They have all sorts of other stuff on their website too, so check out the link below. Okay, moving on to number 1. That's Bakersfield, California, the place where you can find the affordable dream and the Bakersfield sound. It's a city where being able to afford a home comes with, well, Bakersfield itself. If you've ever wanted to live in California but haven't hit the jackpot with a Ponzi scheme, this could be your chance. It's got a population of just with about 60,000 residents, and close to 1 million if you count the whole metro area. It's a decent-sized spot. The average home price here won't give you a heart attack, which is pretty rare for California. Bakersfield is one of those unique places in the Golden State where you can still afford to live. Now, you might not love the air quality. It's some of the worst around. But if that's not a deal breaker for you, this could be a really good choice. So, how did Bakersfield begin? Well, it sorts of got its start in 1860, and let's just say things didn't go so well for those early folks. So, the first folks to settle here back in 1861 hit a really rough patch. A huge flood basically wiped out what a German guy, Christian Bona, had started just a year earlier. Talk about bad luck. But the California gold rush was still a huge draw, and it brought in people like Thomas Baker. He was a lawyer and a former colonel from Ohio. In 1863, he decided to set up his own camp right by the Kern River. This spot quickly became known as Bakersfield, and it turned into a pretty popular stop for anyone traveling through. By 1870, things were really kicking off, and the place had grown quite a bit. It grew to about 600 people, and pretty soon it was turning into the go-to spot for Kern County. Fast forward to 1873, and Bakersfield officially became a city. Now, no spot is ever perfect, and Bakersfield is getting big quick, because a bunch of Californians are leaving the pricey cities. They're looking for a life in California where folks are cool with gasoline cars and firearms. Sometimes, those open arms are actually in the air because someone else has a gun. But hey, that's just California for you. So, do you think this city is safer than only a tiny percentage of US cities? That means it's definitely not some perfect, crime-free place. It's just a bit better than those spots you always hear about on the news for bad stuff. And if you're picturing that California ocean breeze, well, this isn't the same area as Sacramento or Chico. It's this huge valley, and it's even at the very bottom of it, so it's a bit warmer here. The closest beach is a good 126 miles away, so unless you're up for a 2-hour drive to get there, you know when you hit Channel Islands Beach, that tan you're getting, yeah, that's thanks to Bakersfield's crazy summer heat. It definitely builds character, or at the very least, makes you truly appreciate a good air conditioner. If you're thinking of working here, you really need to be into oil or farming. Those are the big bosses when it comes to jobs around here. And if you ever doubted how much Bakersfield is tied to oil, there's even a suburb called Oildale. Here's a look at Oildale, and another. There are just thousands of those oil derricks everywhere. There are things everywhere in Bakersfield. You know, you might think of it as just country music and barbecue. And sure, Bakersfield isn't just about surviving the heat, or dodging a bit of petty crime here and there, but it truly has a culture. Have you ever heard of the Bakersfield sound? It's a real thing. This is Bakersfield's proudest musical export, a country music style that's grittier and twangier. Legends like Buck Owens and Merle Haggard made it famous. They used to call this place the Nashville of the West for a good reason, you know? You can get the full vibe here. You can really get into the honky-tonk past at Buck Owens' Crystal Palace. It's cool because you can read up on all the big names, and then order a steak named after someone called Dorothy. I'm not sure who Dorothy is, but it's kind of funny. In Marina del Rey, California, women get boats named after them. In Bakersfield, you get a steak. If you ever find yourself in Bakersfield, you should swing by the Fox Theater. It's like stepping back in time to the old movie theater days. I don't think they even play movies there anymore, but they host live shows. So, Should you think about moving to the area? Bakersfield, California. It's a pretty good pick if you want to live in California without spending a fortune. There are jobs, a rich country music past, and some grub that might just make you forget about that diet. Sure, the beach is a bit of a trek, and it's not the safest spot on the map, but the cost of living is okay, and sometimes you just have to deal with the good and the not so great. A typical house in Bakersfield will run you about $389,000, and rent is 8% higher than the national average. Alright, so that's it for today's video. Hope it was good for you. If you liked it, then you'll probably like one of these 2 videos popping up. Have a great day, and let's all be nice to each other out there.